It had been another day of hard work, and James came sulking into his shed beside Edward. Why does the Fat Controller want me to pull trucks? I am the only red engine, and I should be admired. Careful, James, Edward advised. You don't want to end up like them now, do you? James was curious. Who's them? And this is the story Edward's told. Many years ago, in the railway's early days, the Fat Controller, or the Fat Director as he was known back then, trialled many engines. Among them were 98462, 87546 and a red engine. 98462 was all speed and no brains, which in turn also harmed his intelligence. One morning he was waiting in the shed with the other big engines. The driver came and he glanced at 98462. Would you like to come out today? He asked. What an honour, yes please sir, 98462 proudly uttered, and he boasted as he left the shed. Look at me, Gordon, aren't I the pride of the line? Never mind, you'll get your chance. On the mainland! 98462 chuckled while Gordon simply hissed with frustration. 98462 entered the yard and quickly reversed down onto the coaches. He slammed into them and they were rammed into the settle buffers at the end of their siding. Whoosh, what trick! They snarled. Come on my cattle trucks, we have not got all day, 98462 growled, and he whizzed off to the platform. 98462 snapped, Get in quickly please, we have a timetable to keep. And so the passengers rushed into the coaches and he jerked away. Thomas, who was arranging another train, heard 98462's whistle as he departed, and he wanted to play him up. The sleepy signalman had forgotten to change the points, so Thomas was accidentally put on 98462's line. Before he was sent back onto the correct one. 98462 screeched to a halt as Thomas chuckled his way to the platform. One of these days, 98462 growled before continuing. Little did 98462 realise that his rough riding resulted in the coupling to one of the coaches loosening up. The coach cried to 98462. Stop! Stop! My coupling is loose! My coupling is loose! But 98462 didn't care. Silence! He snapped. We are running late and we won't beat Gordon's speed record. If I beat it, the Fat Director will surely keep me. And so 98462 went faster and faster until the coupling on the coach snapped off and 98462 whizzed off into the distance. He got all the way to his next station before realising his ignorant mistake. Embarrassed and annoyed, he went back down the line and pushed his coaches back while he sulked about his new record being ruined. That night, the Fat Director scolded 98462. Rough riding and bullying is not tolerated on my railway. You are here to help. Should this behaviour continue, you will be sent away. Am I clear? 98462 just scoffed, and the displeased Fat Director walked away. Jane stayed strangely silent for weeks afterwards. In the early days, when the Fat Director had trialled many engines, he ordered a tank engine to do goods work. However, the order was mixed up, and instead came along an express passenger tank engine called 87546. Making do with what he got, he put 87546 on goods work. 87546 was egotistical and proud. He considered himself supreme to all engines, as being a large tank engine meant he saw himself as the best of both tank engines and tender engines, alongside getting the treat to do goods work which he had never done on his old line. 87546 told off the tender engines when they bullied Thomas, purely for his own amusement. "Guess my coach is little Thomas, I haven't got all day," Gordon would snarl. "If they are so important, Gordon, go fetch them yourself." "Oh, sorry, what a shame, you'll have a tender. Never mind, you'll soon be phased out with supremes like me," 87546 would say. He and Thomas laughed at the big engines when their backs were turned. And in turn, 87546 would laugh with the big engines about Thomas when the little tank engine had his back turned. One morning, he was in the shed when the driver came. "Choose me, sir, my wheels are aching for a stretch," 98462 begged. 87546 made a counter-argument. "No, sir, these tender engines are always causing trouble. Why not take me? It has been so long since I pulled passengers, and, as you know, I am reliable." "Are you sure, 87546? You haven't pulled passengers since you were on your old railway?" the driver asked. "Of course. Chip chop," 87546 pleaded. "I am the express engine of this railway. Why does he get to take my train?" 98462 snarled. "Because, 98462, you are oversized. You can't collect your coaches. I, on the other hand, am the supreme locomotive, capable of doing the work of both tank and tender engines. Unlike you. Yuck, I'd hate to be you," 87546 said with disgust as he left his shed. 87546 had a reputation for arriving on time, but today he realised he was running behind. "If we wait any longer, my reputation will be ruined," 87546 thought. And so he started early, throwing passengers off the coach's footplate and leaving without the guard. He hurried down the line. "Fancy pulling your coach's coupling out, 98462. Now I'll show you how to keep time," he smirked. 87546 consistently arrived at stations on time. "Get in quickly," he'd say, out of needing to preserve his ego, so he never had enough time to collect every passenger. When he finally reached the terminus, he couldn't have been more pleased with himself. He waited for the guard's whistle, but it never came. "Where is my guard?" 87546 asked. "You silly engine, you left him behind," a passenger said. "And many of your passengers," his driver continued. 87546's face went red. He reversed back down the line to the big station where the guard was waiting grumpily. "You should have been in my coach," 87546 hissed. "You had no patience. Safety must come before time. You are lucky you didn't crash," the guard retorted. 87546 was about to retaliate, but before he could, the guards got straight to helping the passengers enter the coaches. Despite his reputation being somewhat spoiled, his ego remained, alongside his rudeness. 98462, furious that a tank engine took the express, reported 87546's behaviour to the Fat Director. As a result, once 87546's use on the railway expired, he was promptly sent away, much to his fury. In the early days, the Fat Director trialled many engines. Among them was a red engine. The red engine saw himself as essential and useful, when in reality he was one of the most uncooperative and difficult engines to work with. "This railway wouldn't function without me," he'd brag. However, he'd say this in the most ironic of moments. One morning the red engine was pulling an empty passenger train into the yard, and he cut off 87546 and his goods train. The big tank engine growled, "Watch it, you could have harmed the Supreme locomotive." "Supreme? At least I am pulling important people rather than rubbish," the red engine retorted. 87546 hissed and continued on. When the red engine pulled into the yard, he was shocked to find another red engine. The other engine was called James, and he had returned from the works after his crash. "You must be the engine who crashed on your first day," the red engine groaned. "Another red engine?" James was shocked. "I am essential to this railway's operation, and so I have deserved my livery," the red engine gloated. "Unlike you, first day, crashed, and you're worthy of red? Pathetic." "Well, at least I am part of the railway and not on trial," James said. "We'll see. My trial's almost complete. How about a competition? Whoever can get their train to the next station the most efficiently wins and keeps their livery." But before James could reply, the red engine said, "I'll see you there tomorrow," and he pulled away. In the morning, the driver came up to the red engine. "Come on, old boy, it is time for work," he said. The red engine yawned and snapped with, "I am dozy, I am not leaving my shed." "You'll have to if you want to prove you're superior to James," the driver said. The red engine's eyes widened. He groaned and mumbled, "I might as well," and he grumpily left his shed. James was waiting at the big station when the red engine pulled up alongside him with his passenger train. "Now look what you got me into," the red engine growled. "I was comfy in my shed and you've dragged me out." "Then perhaps you should stay in there and let me win," James retorted. "Bah! And lose my livery? Never," the red engine said. The guard blew his whistle and the engine pulled out of his platform. However, there was 87546 pulling out the yard onto the red engine's line. The red engine quickly applied his brakes, but it was too late. He slammed into 87546's train and came off the rails. "Idiot!" 87546 snarled, then the red engine spoke with him. You could have damaged the Supreme locomotive. Do you ever shut up about your supreme status?" the red engine grumbled before rolling his eyes. James rushed by the crash scene. "Never mind, red engine. Thank you for the victory." The red engine simply growled. The red engine did retain his red livery, much to James's displeasure. However, after that accident with 87546, and once his usefulness expired, the Fat Director sent the red engine back to where he came from. The rude red engine was never heard from again. James pulled into the big station beside Gordon, looking unusually glum. "You've been strangely quiet, little James. I'd expect you to be complaining about your goods work," Gordon snarked. "Edward reminded me of the old loaned engines. We often cause trouble and are rude. Do you think we are like them?" James wondered. "Unlike them, we knew when to stop. The others were sent away, but you showed 98462 what us Northwestern engines are made of," Gordon recounted, and it all came back to James. 98462 had caused too much trouble, but the Fat Director was willing to give him one last chance. "You have caused too much trouble since you came, 98462. However, I am willing to give you one last chance to prove yourself. But if you fail again, you will be sent away. Am I clear?" the Fat Director warned. 98462 simply mumbled, "Yes, sir." 98462 entered the yard and backed down to a water tower. He had a long drink before his express run. While he was waiting, he noticed James was there. His crew were talking to the workmen about their next train. "Oh, James, how dreadful to see you here," 98462 smirked. James gave an insulted look. "At least my paint job isn't as dreadful as yours," James retorted. "What cheek!" 98462 was astounded. "I'll report you to the Fat Director." "Not likely, he won't believe you," James giggled. "And why not?" 98462 asked. "Who here has the worst reputation on the railway?" James asked. 98462 stayed silent, thinking his hardest before answering with, "Gordon," he replied with confidence. James gave a displeased look that a teacher may give a student when they got their answer wrong. "Now if you don't mind, I, the greatest express engine, have a very important train to take," 98462 said with the largest amount of envy, and he pulled away to collect his coaches. James laughed at him as he departed. "Get in quickly, I haven't got all day," 98462 snapped to the passengers, so everyone got in quickly, and 98462 rushed away. Whenever he came across another locomotive, he simply discarded them rudely and continued on with his work. Though he didn't realise it himself, he was not taking advantage of his final chance, and his rude behaviour eventually caught up with him. He was rushing down the express line when he felt something sloshing about in his tender, and then he felt a blockage in one of his injectors used to transport water from his tender to his boiler. "Yosh! What is that?" Not too long after, he felt another blockage with his other injector. His fireman panicked, and 98462's crew brought him to a stop. "I will not risk losing my speed record to that sorry excuse of a locomotive called Gordon," 98462 cried. He secretly looked up to Gordon and always saw him as a competitor to the Express. "You must wait. Your injectors are failing, and if we continue, your boiler could explode," the fireman said. "Ah!
Explosion or not, I am getting my train to the next station,
98462 argued. His crew knew the next station was a long way off, and his boiler would explode if he continued on alone. The situation was reported to the Fat Director, and he went and paid James a visit. James, 98462 has done it again. He is stuck on the main line and needs your help to finish his express run. No other engines are available. Can you go help him? The Fat Controller asked.
Oh yes sir,
James said, a beaming smile stretching his lips to either side of his face, and he rushed to the rescue. James pulled up alongside 98462, who was still moaning about his speed records being ruined once more.
Well, would you get a load of this? The greatest express engine has broken down. What a shame. And look who comes to his rescue.
James laughed. 98462 yelled and moaned like a child wanting a toy they couldn't have, while James ran to the front of the train, and with much difficulty, he pulled 98462 and his express down the line. James made fun of 98462. He laughed and beamed from buffer to buffer as he pulled 98462 and the express.
This should have been my moment,
98462 whined.
And look what handsome engines getting the recognition today,
James continued. Engines such as Henry and Gordon got a good laugh out of seeing James hauling an express train and 98462. When James reached the next station, he shunted 98462 onto a siding and continued his express run. That night, James shunted 98462 into the shed, and the Fat Director was there with a stern look. 98462 knew what was coming. 98462, I gave you and many others far too many chances to prove you could be better engines than you were. I see now that you big engines are hot-headed. Once you are repaired, you will return to the mainland immediately. Am I clear?
Yes, sir,
98462 muttered. He showed an emotion he had never shown before. Sadness and defeat. Sadness that he didn't get to be Sodor's main express engine. And you, James, the Fat Controller continued, have proven your worth yet again. First with the trucks, then with Gordon's Express, and now with 98462's Express. You are a very splendid engine. James couldn't help but smile.
Thank you, sir.
An investigation into the water tower that 98462 drank from and 98462's injectors showed that fish had gotten into the tower. It was cleared out, and once 98462 was repaired at Croven's Gate, he was sent away. No one ever heard from him again. As you can see, little James, we may not always be the most pleasant, and we have all made mistakes. But we can't be the best versions of ourselves if we don't allow ourselves to embrace those mistakes. We may shy away from admission to them, but if we learn from them, then that is what matters. James was inspired by Gordon's little speech, and more than a little shocked.
Look who's the old iron now,
He chuckled. Come on, little James, we have work to do. Gordon laughed with him. Now go out there, James. Be the engine I know you can be.
Thank you, Gordon.